So it's my pleasure to tell a very brief story that I hope will cement for you how this program works and the value that it has within our community and within our nation. This is the story of just one of many thousands of international visitors who have traveled to Arizona. To keep it simple, let's call him IVO. In 2001, IVO was a university professor teaching criminal and international law in the newly democratized Republic of Croatia. IVO had co-founded the respected Croatian Law Center in 1994, published over 85 academic and professional papers, and played a central role in humanitarian efforts helping save Croatian prisoners of war from Serbian detention centers. In addition, IVO was a well-known, classically trained musical composer. Late in the fall of 2001, IVO was recognized by the U.S. Embassy as a rising star, a man of substance, and someone who would likely grow in prominence. For these reasons, the U.S. ambassador in Croatia nominated IVO to participate in the very distinguished International Visitor Leadership Program, or IVLP. The International Visitor Leadership Program is the second largest exchange program in the United States, second only to the Fulbright program, which many are far more familiar with, and dates back more than 70 years. Each year, the International Visitor Leadership Program brings over 5,000 emerging leaders from around the world to the United States to study our system of democracy and to meet with their professional counterparts. For many, this is their first visit to the United States, and typically, a visitor will start in Washington, D.C., and ultimately visit 4 or 5 different cities across the United States. You saw the names of some of the more famous alum from our organization scrolling across the screen as we began this evening. But back to IVO's story. Once nominated, IVO was vetted by the State Department's Office of International Visitors. You'll meet Alma Candelaria a little later in our program, who is currently the director of the Office of International Visitors. And ultimately, the program was approved by then Secretary of State Colin Powell. Soon after, the U.S. Embassy in Croatia, the State Department in Washington, D.C., and IVO himself began working on building his professional exchange program. Together, they created a unique and specialized program for IVO titled U.S. Foreign Policy and Human Rights Issues. Based on his own life experience, IVO wanted to study 3 specific issues. 1, he wanted to learn how the U.S. judicial system manages human and civil rights, to study firsthand how grassroots non-governmental organizations seek to influence human rights policies at the national, state, and local level, and number 3, to witness government-based programs in action at the local level. Seems pretty simple, right? Well, at this point, IVO's program was made known to the National Council for International Visitors. The National Council for International Visitors is a nonprofit association with 50 years of leadership in citizen diplomacy. You're going to get to meet Dr. Sherry Mueller in just a few minutes, who has been our esteemed leader for the last 16 years. NCIV serves the international exchange community and helps build person-to-person relationships, as we say, one handshake at a time. The NCIV network consists of 93 local centers for international visitors around the United States. From well-developed organizations in large cities like Philadelphia, New York, Chicago, San Francisco, to small, all-volunteer-based organizations like Minot, North Dakota, Bozeman, Montana, and Portland, Maine, where a real slice of American culture can be seen. And of course, my favorite of all, the Arizona Council for International Visitors, which has just one full-time employee to keep it all together. And I would like for Sue Reiner, our Executive Director and CEO, to stand and be recognized. For the last 20 years, Sue has been engaged in building professional programs for international visitors throughout our state, in all of our cities, at all levels of government, within every discipline and industry imaginable, and she is the glue that holds our local organization together. But the Arizona Council and the other councils that I mentioned constitute over 80,000 volunteers from around the United States that keep our program running on a daily basis. So I suppose at this point you've guessed that IVO was fortunate enough to be selected to travel to Arizona. On January 31st, 2002, IVO departed Zagreb, Croatia, for Washington, D.C. on a journey that would soon change his life forever. He stayed a few days in D.C. before traveling to New York, Cincinnati, San Antonio, Phoenix, and finally Denver. IVO hit the ground running in Arizona on Friday, February the 8th, where his entire first day was spent with the office of our then Attorney General, Janet Napolitano. After an hour of polite introductions and conversations with the AG, IVO met for 2 hours with Napolitano's Director of Public Advocacy, then an hour with the Director of the Victim Rights Section, then an hour with the Civil Rights Section, and then finally a roundtable discussion with the Capital Case Commission to debate the death penalty in the United States. I guess you could say that IVO was able to check item number 1 off his list on the very first day. Home hospitality. My story wouldn't be complete if I failed to mention home hospitality. Nearly every visitor that travels to the United States under the IVLP for one night during their stay in the host city is invited to an American home for dinner. We're not talking about linen napkins and filet mignon or champagne. We're talking about real American hospitality, barbecue, kids, dogs, football, perhaps even a beer or two. These are perhaps the most important stories, and they're certainly the most memorable stories, for it's much harder for people with a predisposition to dislike Americans to maintain those feelings once they know us, once they've visited us in our home, and once they've broken bread. When someone joins AZCIV, and this is my pitch for membership, you'll find documents in the back if you'd like to join. They complete a questionnaire asking about countries of interest, languages spoken, issues that they're interested in, a variety of different demographic questions. And Sue, in turn, does her very best to arrange home hospitality based upon those answers. Now, I love this part of the story, and it's so coincidental, because in the case of IVO, Sue couldn't have done any better when she partnered IVO with Dr. George and Susie Stavros. And for those of you who don't know George and Susie Stavros, they have hosted literally hundreds of international visitors in their home over the years. Not only are they the kindest and gentlest couple, but they're one of the most entertaining that we've had the opportunity to call part of our family. Now, I know George and Susie were on their way back up from a humanitarian mission in Rocky Point tonight. I'm not certain that they're in the house, but if they are, I would like for them to stand and be recognized as well. And if not, we can honor them with our applause. Now, rolling into IVO's weekend, since his program started on a Friday, Sue, like she has done for countless other visitors, made arrangements on Saturday for IVO to visit the Grand Canyon, courtesy of Rusty Madison. Rusty Madison has been our tour guide, our resident driver, our currency exchange, our balladeer, and occasionally a triage nurse, and an all-around good guy and citizen diplomat for the last 20 years. So I would ask for Rusty to stand and be celebrated for his contribution this evening. Rusty? All the way in the back. Okay. Okay, I have to get moving with IVO's story. So on Monday, IVO spent the morning with the city of Scottsdale, first being greeted by the mayor, and then with department heads in social services, human resources, diversity, community outreach, followed by lunch with the mayor and council members. I guess you could check box number 2 off of IVO's agenda. IVO's fast-paced third day consisted of meetings with Chicanos por la Causa, Head Start, the Family Resource Center, Clinica Al Dente, and even an after-school recreation program. IVO could now check the third and final box off of his list. We had to say goodbye to IVO on Wednesday. He still had more traveling to do, but it certainly wouldn't be the last that we heard from IVO. He returned to Croatia on February the 22nd and quickly got back to work. I want to share just a few of the things that IVO accomplished upon his return. He soon represented Croatia before the International Court of Justice. He participated in the evaluation and overhaul of the prison system in Croatia, Ukraine, and Mongolia. He built a platform as a social democrat, developed international associations with NATO and the Council of Europe. He fought to normalize relations with neighboring countries, established intensive economic, cultural, and political cooperation within the region. And within 1 year of his trip to the United States, he ran for and was elected to the national parliament, where he fought for universal human rights, the protection of rights for national minorities, championed the prosecution of war criminals, and promoted justice as the foundation for his state's organization. He changed his party affiliation, fought for women's rights, sustained a platform committed to social justice, but IVO wasn't done there. In fact, I shouldn't be referring to him as IVO at all. I should be referring to him as the President of the Republic of Croatia, for that is his title today. President Ivo Josipovic was elected as the third president of the new democracy in Croatia by a wide margin, and today enjoys a consistent approval rating of over 70%. He is a friend and an ally of the United States, and I am proud that he was a participant in the International Visitor Leadership Program, and I'm proud that he visited our great state. Now, ladies and gentlemen, purely by coincidence, we are honored to have 4 IVLP participants from Croatia joining us in the audience this evening, and I would ask that they stand and be recognized. Perhaps in less than a decade, just like Ivo, one of you will follow in his shoes. Ladies and gentlemen, this is citizen diplomacy. It happens 5,000 times each year, every day, in big cities and in small towns, with politicians, with business leaders, with journalists, with average, everyday Americans. Citizen diplomats welcome and receive these international visitors to share with them just a small piece of themselves and leave them with lasting memories. This is citizen diplomacy, and it's beautiful, and it works, and it's worthy of our celebration tonight. Thank you.